Hi everyone, welcome to FilmDirt. Let's talk about Independence Day. This was a huge film back in the day, wasn't it? It was so well hyped and it was the must-see movie that everyone had to go and see. I don't think it's held up that well since, but for the time, I think the effects were really good. But I gotta tell you, they've held up a lot better than the actual story, which nowadays it just makes you groan at certain points of the film. Now, I love what this film stood for. It was just in your face popcorn entertainment, and it didn't really seem to be anything more than that. And it did a great job of it. But it's just too schmaltzy, I've got to say. It's almost a poor quality Spielberg film where it copies similar, I guess, trademarks or tropes that Spielberg usually incorporates in his films, but they're just not executed as well here. Now, with that I mean the zoom in or panning into people's faces as their jaw drops open and they're in awe or aghast at what they see before them. And you've got the families that just seem a little bit irritating. Spielberg was guilty of this a few times, especially in his earlier films. I remember Close Encounters in particular had pretty annoying family, and we've got a couple of them here. As well as the families, you've got irritating side characters like I think his name's Brent Spiner, who's the tech lab guy at the Area 51 part of the film. He just doesn't seem like a real character, and he just seems like comic relief. And he's not the only one. We've got the actor that plays Jeff Goldblum's father. They're just hamming up that he's Jewish and making us very aware that he's Jewish all the time throughout the film, and it's just so irritating. And you've got Randy Quaid as well, where he's encountered aliens as well in the past. Do we believe him or not? I don't think we really care whether we do or not, because borderline annoying. Now, as for Bill Pullman, I like what he's done here. He's the leader that we all want. Former fighter pilot, and he's been elected president. Seems like a young man in this film, so that's a good sign to have a young man in charge. So, apart from that, there's a lot of promise in this film where it's something you can take your whole family to. I went with my family back in the day, and it was a huge event. And I know why it was a huge event. It's because there's parallels within this film. There's certain design choices that mirror real life. Like you've got the flying saucers, and they're the disc shape that we've seen so often in those blurry photos from amateur photos and Area 51 images and places like that. And that's not only in the large UFOs, you've also got the smaller fighter UFOs as well. They're disc shaped. So everything kind of looks familiar, and that extends to the aliens themselves, where you've got that very well established teardrop type design with the big bug eyes. So we're watching this film. I remember it so well, I'll never forget it, where we think, is this film based on real life? A lot of people that aren't really streetwise or into movies were thinking this was a true story almost. Remember when the X-Files was first shown on TV, where people weren't quite sure whether it was fake or is it based on true events or true findings that are kept secret. It's just almost blurring the lines, and I think this film took advantage of those tropes, I guess you could call them. Just well-established themes that we can all relate to. Now, I like the alien designs in this. They're wearing a biomechanical suit that opens up in the middle. It's got like a seam down the middle, and it opens up. And they're quite fragile inside, just like humans are. So this protective shell gives them a different look. And we also established that they don't speak, they don't have vocals, so they're using telekinesis, I guess, or sound waves, and in this case, they're using our own satellites to project signals to each other, I guess to other UFOs around the globe, which seems very primitive. And as it turns out, that's how Jeff Goldblum's character concocts a method for uploading a computer virus from an Apple Mac onto the system. It's through our own satellites that they're logged into. Who knows how they found the Wi-Fi code for that or whatever. So, there's a lot of interesting things here, and it's all very light and very popcorn-like. And also, the time it was released, 96, it wasn't long after that classic alien show V and V the Final Battle came out. I mentioned this in previous reviews as well, because a lot of alien movies, I feel, just borrow certain imagery and themes from that TV series. And V was fantastic. And in this case, you've got the very similar looking, huge, circular, disc-shaped UFOs hanging over the city. But it's obviously looking a lot better in Independence Day, because we get that, I guess, the intense cloud atmosphere changing colour as the UFOs come through the atmosphere, and it all looks fantastic. And the imagery, for the most part, really holds up. I think there's only a few wobbly areas, I think mainly due to the compositing of people against huge explosions. And we've got a shot here where a dog is saved. We've got to have a dog being rescued, haven't we? And it doesn't quite meld with the background as he's jumping for safety. But you can overlook certain things. In a lot of 90s movies and 80s movies, when a visual effect isn't going to look that real, but it's the charm and the craft of how they brought that to the screen. It's almost like it's part of the movie. And I love the tagline where Earth fights back, and we do indeed in the final act of the film, where you get lots of jet fighters attacking the main mothership, I guess, in one city in America. I don't know if we've established where it is. And America are leading the way with such gusto and patriotism. It's just a product of its time, really. But I do enjoy watching it. There's some good action here. And some of the main actors, they do a fantastic job. I love Bill Pullman. I think he's great in everything I've seen him in. I love Jeff Goldblum as well, because he's so cool and he's so relaxed, and he's top form here. I've never really been into Will Smith, I've got to be honest. I think a lot of his movies just don't really sit well with me, and his role here is just another in the list of, I feel, just subpar performances. I just don't really like what I'm seeing from Will Smith here. But a lot of the other cast, the supporting cast in particular, especially the White House characters, including Robert Loggia, I think they're all really good, and they just disappear into the role. And, the character, rather than the actor, speaks for itself, and that's what I like about the supporting cast. Very strong. They're all very strong. There's lots of stuff going on in the background that does sell it all. It's just let down by a couple of the foreground characters, which are just too comedic and irritating, and story threads which don't really go anywhere, and just squabbling families. And we understand people are trying to get away and they're fearful for each other and for themselves. I think a lot of that stuff could have been cut out, and this would have been a much tighter movie, because at some points you just got to roll your eyes or even fast forward through the boring bits like I did. So what should we give this film? I'll give it a 3. It's above average. It's a good watch, and I recommend you watch it with the family if you've got small children and elder relatives. This will be perfect to put on. Incidentally, there was also a sequel to this, which I think was direct to home video or direct to streaming, called Independence Day Resurgence. I haven't seen it yet. I'll try and bring you a late review of that soon. So, thanks for listening to my thoughts on Independence Day. What a 90s classic. And just to finish off with a little bit about myself. I'm a completely unbiased reviewer. I only give my own thoughts and I'm not bought or in connection to any of the studios, and I don't even get any free tickets to watch films. So you get a completely honest review from me. Thanks again for joining me. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I'll speak to you again soon. Please like and subscribe and all that jazz they always say. Speak to you again. Take care.